Yesterday, Chair, if anyone ever answered this phone, and they sound like me, and they talk like me, and they tell you everything you need to know, but they didn't preface it by saying, "Help, I've been compromised," you'll know it isn't me. What? That's too confusing? I'll have to find a more subtle method of letting you know it isn't me when you're talking to another to me that isn't me. We'll get back to that later. Here's your next lesson. Listen closely. His name, Harry Barton, age 19, a young man without the age or wisdom necessary to solidify his moral foundation. He'd find himself facing a Pandora's box of inner desires as an unexpected event would lead to an inevitable attrition that would change him forever. Location, Branson, Missouri, USA. Date, 1953. I found this one in an archive I had gathered from my mentor after his unfortunate demise. That is a story for another day, but this item might be of exceptional interest to you, because it is still an open case, and I pity the poor deluded fool that repeats these events. Harry Barton grew up in a home of modest means in a wonderfully Midwestern town. Simpler times bred simpler desires, and the 1950s, for a man of Harry's age, was uncomplicated and enjoyable. The American motive, inscribed on the hearts of most, was make money, get laid, get married, have children, be successful, and enjoy life. There wasn't much more to it than that. Unfortunately for most, these simple brass rings in the merry-go-round rat race of the post-war American dream wasn't so easy to grab and to hold. And Harry was one of those dejected lot whom life didn't bestow with showers of prizes and open doors to opportunity. He was out of high school and having a rough time just keeping a job or affording the most meager of amenities in his life. Love, money, success, and all they bring into a person's life were unavailable to average old Harry Barton. His luck was about to change. Harry had a friend, a close friend from childhood through high school, named Wilf Renault. Wilf was a hunting buddy, and the entire Renault clan was well known for their rugged outdoorsmanship, along with their erudite upper-middle-class lifestyle in the Missouri area. The Renaults were a mix between the frontier days of America and the opulent industrialism of the 20th century, and Wilf was a chip off the proverbial block. Wilf's uncle yearned for the days of hunting and fishing, and all the freedom and freshness the outdoors of the Missouri wilds could provide. But sadly, the middle-aged man was missing an arm and a leg, as well as a few extra toes and fingers. No one ever said why, and the vague stories surrounding these losses were varied, so everyone just ignored it. A war mishap, dynamite accident, hunting misfortune, frostbite, could have been any. Uncle Buck, as he was known, would revel in the boys' tales of hunting whenever they returned from an outing. He'd help skin and dress the meats, fry the fish, and be of help to the young men, in exchange for a paltry amount of their game for dinner, and a plethora of their time by the fire, as they recalled their triumphs and tribulations in the pursuits of each day. Buck would just sip some expensive cognac and smile broadly, living vicariously through the tales of the two young'uns indulging his company. After a particularly wet night in Buck's company, Wilf was trashed and slept in his easy chair by the fire. Buck hadn't had enough to drop him from consciousness, and Harry was never a big drinker, so he was wide awake and noticing Uncle Buck's lorn face staring pitifully into his cognac. "You okay, Buck?" Harry asked softly of his host. "Nah," Buck replied. "Nah, I have concerns. I have something to ask of you, Harry. I have a heavy burden to unload, and I need you to do what I don't have the fortitude to do myself." Harry felt a sinking feeling, as if a huge weight was being pushed down on him. He awaited the worst. He expected something horrible to emerge into the conversation, but all he got was a notepad handed to him by an uncharacteristically reserved man. "Take it," Uncle Buck pleaded, quietly. "Take this cursed thing and bury it deep in the woods, somewhere, anywhere." Harry was astonished and confused. He figured it was filled with the most obscene and compromising data on poor Uncle Buck, but a cursory flip through the lined pages on the small pad revealed nothing. Blank pages. "I don't understand," Harry told him. "Can I just burn it here?" "No," Buck told him. "You can try. It won't do any good." Harry threw it on the roaring flames and watched it not burn for about 10 minutes as Buck continued to explain. "You see this leg?" asked Buck, pointing to a missing limb. "Yeah," said Harry plainly. "No, you don't," Buck purred. "There is no leg. And you can't see this arm either, or these fingers, or the toes inside this boot here. I lost them all due to that goddamn notepad." Harry was confused. What was this about? He just stared at the older man as Buck used a poker to drag the pad from the fire and threw it at Harry. Harry examined the pad. It was pristine. The paper was unblemished from fire or soot. It looked as new as it was before it touched the burning logs. "That thing," Buck tried to muster the courage to tell, "is a cursed item. Some might say blessed, but I say cursed. It's called a barter pad, and some evil bastard somewhere in the past made it, or imbued it, with some sort of qualities that makes it exist parallel to our world, but not in our world so much that it can be altered. It communicates with something otherworldly somewhere. I don't know what. Don't ask me, but it operates very simply. It takes parts of your body and turns them into this." Buck slowly waved the poker over his head, pointing to the beautifully wood-lined ceiling with tin panel inlay, reflecting back light from the room. He pointed to the crystal decanters, the near-priceless furniture, the gold candlesticks, and in essence all the house and its contents. "That's what my arms and legs and fingers and toes got me in this life," Buck explained. "All due to this. You just write on it what you want, and write on it what it can take, what part of your body, and voila, you have something and you've lost something, dear. It's a curse. You need to bury it deep for me in the woods and never tell anyone about it, especially not that fool sleeping over there." Buck pointed to Wilf. "That pad," he continued, "will destroy a man's life. It will turn you inside out and diminish you to a cripple. For what? Some rubbish like this house and some wealth? It's bullshit. Save the world from this accursed thing, please, Harry. Bury it forever, please, for me." Harry nodded in shock. It seemed like some kind of a joke, but how could it be? He saw the pad escape the conflagration and emerge unscathed. Was Buck correct? For the night, Harry agreed. He respected Uncle Buck far too much to think of doing anything else other than carry out the sad man's request. However, the next day, when Harry went out in the woods, going deep back into the remotest area he knew, miles from a road, carrying little else than a notepad and a shovel, he found curiosity beckoning him. From deep inside his heart came a mental urging to test the pad, just to make sure it was true. Harry paused and thought. One trial couldn't hurt. Uncle Buck didn't say he couldn't use it, just that he had to bury it deep. Using a pen he carried in his hunting vest, Harry knelt on the forest floor and began to inscribe something. It was a simple and rather meager request to the pad. Harry felt he could stand to lose his left pinky toe and gain some money. So he merely wrote, "My left pinky toe for a 1-ounce gold coin." And inside his left boot he felt something awkward materialize. Removing his footwear, he discovered a 1-ounce gold coin spilling out. And inside his sock, a foot missing its pinky toe, as if it was amputated years ago. The flesh was smoothed over a place, a toe, once connected to his foot. It was a weird moment of realization for the lacking and willful Barton boy. If he could turn one toe into a gold coin, how much could he get for his next toe? Harry pondered the desires of his heart. The seductively shiny and reflective beauty of that gold coin mesmerizing him toward avarice. Next, Harry tried bartering off things that weren't his physical body, but the writing merely faded from the page and nothing happened. He tried offering his next toe, nearest to the vanished pinky toe, for obscenely large wealth. $100 trillion. Nothing. The text just faded out, and nothing happened. $100 million. Nothing. $1 million. Nothing. $100,000. Nothing. $10,000. Lo and behold, $10,000 of gold appeared and his toe disappeared. The note vanished as well. $10,000, Harry swooned. He had now enough money to buy a few really keen cars or a new house. He had made it, he thought. And then the bug struck him strong. How much could he get for his next toe? It was more. $70,000 in gold. The next one he got up to $100,000 in gold. And then he looked at his big toe on his left foot. Was it really worth sacrificing for money? He already had $180,000 in gold piled next to him in the forest. In 1950, that was a huge amount of cash. Losing his big toe might cost him his balance. It must be more than $100,000, Harry thought. He was curious how much it would fetch. He stared at his big toe and thought hard. Harry Barton hobbled back into the old residence shortly after. He was shocked to see everyone huddled by the entrance to the study where he had left Uncle Buck, only to discover Uncle Buck had passed away peacefully while sleeping by the fire. A coroner ruled it a heart attack, brought on by some kind of stress or the release of a great stress in his life. Harry understood perfectly what had happened. He bid his farewell after a heartfelt round of condolences. It left Harry cold. He was just with the man a few hours earlier, and now Buck was gone. Everything was oddly disjointed to Harry, whom had just become a very rich young man. Looking to his right, he saw the unburied notepad on his passenger seat of his rusted and dilapidated old Ford pickup truck. Looking back over his shoulder, he saw the stash of hundreds of pounds of gold, still safe, under an old canvas tarp. Stopping in front of an ample mansion outside of Springfield, Missouri, far north of his home, he checked his left foot to see his big toe had vanished. "Hello, Mr. Barton," a well-dressed man said into the boy's open passenger side window. "We were told to expect you. Please follow me." The man was a real estate salesman. He related to Harry how he was now the sole owner of the previously for sale Brewer's Mansion, a 24-room mansion on an immaculate estate of 150 acres. It had an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, a topiary garden, and plenty of hunting ground. It had recently updated the windows and electric, and everything was cleaned up and ready for his entry. And enter Harry did. Harry had become affluent at the cost of his toes. Only his toes on his left foot. Earlier that week he was dirt poor. Now he had a pile of gold and a miraculous mansion gained at the expense of a big toe. The next week was used to idle away time while the finest furnishings and staff could be procured and signed on. He found an avenue to surreptitiously sell his precious metals bit by bit until he had bags full of cash and a fresh bank account brimming with bills. He then invested most of it, using the best advice from the top investment banker in Kansas City. Walking fine without toes on one foot, Harry used his notepad to write off a few more toes and exchanged them for top-shelf automobiles, clothes, a wines and spirits collection, and a plethora of fine firearms for hunting and protection. And with his final toes, he bartered for more money in the form of pure cash. All of it was instantly his and sitting in front of him. Ambling about on the balls of his feet was little trouble for a man so set in life. But after months of living the high life, he found he still lacked love. He wasn't satisfied with the oddball floozies he was encountering, and the highbrow elite of Missouri were snubbing him for not being a blue blood. Harry lacked everything the desirable upper class had in spades: breeding, opportunities, businesses, influence, roots, etc., etc. And he found out quickly that what he had wasn't enough to even scratch the underbelly of the upper class in his state, let alone the USA. Most of that meant nothing. But he did desire a woman of exceptional beauty and refinement to be his companion. His charms weren't enough to capture one in the wild. And so he turned to his notepad once more. Getting the love of such a fine woman was difficult. It wouldn't accept a mere shin. It took his whole left leg, and within seconds a mysterious stranger was ringing his mansion's doorbell. Opening the door, after a treacherous hobble down a long flight of winding stairs in the central foyer, Harry Barton found himself facing the most intensely beautiful and sexually attractive female he had ever seen, and a light shone in her eyes for him, as was made quite evident to Harry. She stammered as she approached Harry, making trespass into his home. I was just passing by when I don't know. I just had to come here and meet you. Who are you? The young woman had more seductive features and movements than Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, and Lauren Bacall combined. Harry nervously escorted her in, and they sat talking through the early evening hours as a manservant stoked the fire near them in the parlor. They both enjoyed some cordials, and the cordial nature they were fostering between them. Her name was Jasmine O'Rourke. She was single, 22, and passing through Missouri from Los Angeles to New York City, when an urge overtook her, and there she was. Sweet Jasmine was an actress, aspiring, of course, and looking for a big break. She had a chance to get into a Broadway play as a substantial supporting character, and was heading for a promising audition. Jasmine stayed the night, first in her own bedroom and later in his bedroom. There was a whirlwind romance that gracefully went on for months. Harry found himself falling in love more and more every day he was with this woman. Her beauty inside and out was beyond intoxication. Every moment they were together, every moment they made lustful contact, and every time they fulfilled their procreative duties together. Their minds and bodies screamed for each other, silently tortured through the days, tortured that they could not be closer than physically possible. A marriage occurred, naturally. Harry was so besotted with Jasmine that he sacrificed his 5th and 4th fingers on his left hand for her to have an enormously lavish ceremony and reception, rivaling that of the filthy rich in New York and Boston. It made headline news across the Midwest that year. Yet, the more he showed her attention, affection, and wealth, the more she grew bored. She grew a little colder all the time. Harry found himself desperate to appease his woman's materialistic desires. His accounts were running bare, and he had to turn to the notepad once again. Harry sacrificed a few more fingers, his whole left arm, and was at his limit. His wife would spend weeks with him indulging, never aware that a change had taken place. The notepad seemed to obscure the fact from other people that Harry was losing body parts. They just accepted that he was now and always the cripple he had been. Jasmine didn't seem to care as much for Harry as he diminished. His physical form left her wanting. She did enjoy the sex, but wasn't as enthused for their daytimes together. Yet together they were inseparable. And again, within another small span of time, the young couple were expending all their wealth faster than investments could provide. Harry appeased his wife by sacrificing his hair, his right leg, then his ears. Soon an eye, and then teeth, one by one, slowly replaced by dentures. And later yet, into 1958, Harry's deep love for his woman made him consider other avenues. He sacrificed a lung, a kidney, but nothing abated her desire to indulge with him and live the highest of the high life in America. The highest life that America could offer in an age of opulence. Finally, he was just a torso with a sadly featureless head and an arm. He begged her to love him like she used to feverishly desire him all over, to make love to him like they used to when they met. But she couldn't find any such motivation due to his condition. She apologized and left him wallowing on their large bed alone. He sobbed like a baby. A man of 25, and he was reduced to a mere shell, a mere head and arm, and torso. And lastly, a desirous set of sexual organs below it all. He wanted to be a man again, to be whole, to be satisfied. Harry cursed the barter pad, cursed the choices he made in life. Everything led him further down the path to disillusion. After a long period of contemplation, he struggled to the nightstand with determination. Harry would be able to have everything he ever wanted. To be a man and be the sole desire of his woman's mind and body. To be at one with his wife, give her joy and receive endless joy from her. He scrawled out his note carefully, sure not to miss anything and secure his future with her. Jasmine could be heard shortly running up the stairs and down the hall, loudly bursting into their bedroom, a fire in her eyes and undying desire for Harry. She rushed to him on the bed, hungry for his form, and cradled him with a need she never felt so intensely. Behind her, on the nightstand, was the notepad, the pen scrawl fading slowly. It read, My torso, my arm, my head, for Jasmine's unending lust. And it was granted. The bewitching beauty was on their bed, cradling Harry's last remains, his living, throbbing male organs, and a wedding ring. She made love to him several times that night, several times the next day, and forevermore. When she had a spare moment or two, she kept him inside the side drawer at home, in her purse when she went out on the town, or inside her whenever possible. Jasmine never married again. Their marriage was technically still perfectly binding. Though Harry wasn't dead, no one that knows of this tale was certain if he was all there, so to speak. Of course, was he ever all there, once he was possessed of the use of the cursed barter pad? Where was his mind? Where was his soul? All I know is that his remaining organ responded to stimuli and functioned fully. In fact, Jasmine birthed over 24 kids using Harry. They had a huge family of children raised by nannies that never knew who their father was, or what he was at that point. As for where they all are now, all I can say is that Jasmine lived a very full life with her man. They were almost always together, and in deep love, or whatever you call that. She passed away mere weeks ago at age 89. Photos in the paper showed a smiling corpse. What became of Harry? What of the pad? No one can find either. Was he already dead? I doubt it, looking at her corpse. Was he buried with her? Where is he? Well, who can say? Perhaps she handed off the baton, so to speak. And Harry is now being employed by another woman somewhere. What he can't see or hear can't harm him, I suppose. So, good luck to him. A man reduced to his basest form, condensed into something so pure, so desired, and yet just an object of desire, and little else. That's quite a trade for the love of a sex object. Like and subscribe before I die, and ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can
it
sit.
depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?
That is a